We praise you, O God, for this evergreen crown that marks our days of preparation for Christ's advent. As we light the first candle of this wreath, rouse us from sleep that we may be ready to greet our Lord when he comes with all the saints and angels. Enlighten us with your grace and prepare our hearts to welcome him with joy. Grant this through Christ our Lord, whose coming is certain and whose day draws near. Amen.
Christ comes to lighten our darkness. May the light of God's glory be with you always.
And also with you.
And let us pray. Stir up your Let us recite the gospel acclamation together. Let your steadfast love come to us, O Lord. Save us as you promise. We will trust your word. The reading of the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 24th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to the disciples, about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will it be the coming of the Son of Man. And then two will be in the field, and not one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together, one will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
In the third quarter of the 19th century, an English prelate, clergyman, whose last name was Darby, whose first name I can't remember and is just as well, decided that he was going to find out when the end times were going to come. And he, of course, was a literalist, and so he believed that the earth was only around, 6,200 years old, despite the evidence that was emerging at that time of all these darn dinosaur bones. What are you going to do with them? They kept popping up, but he ignored that completely. And so he went on and he scoured the Old Testament, and he came up with all kinds of mathematical evidence as to when things were going to happen. And these were called millennialists, I have to say it correctly. And as a result, ever since then, it's been erased to see when all of this is going to happen that you just heard being read to you out of the Gospel of Matthew. Well, of course, there's always a problem with all of that, because everybody's mathematical equations don't always match the reality. And so they decided to divide it up into two parts. So it wasn't enough to be a millennialist, you had to be a pre-millennialist or a post-millennialist. If you were a pre-millennialist, that meant that all of this stuff you just heard in the gospel would start happening, all of these terrible things. And if you were a post-millennialist, all of this stuff had to wait, and then the coming of Jesus would come along. It got very, very complex. And this was grasped over here in the United States by what we call the holiness movement, in which people kind of got the idea that they were going to either go with one way or another, and it became very, very complicated. And when you think of all of that, and all that work that clergy person Darby did, he forgot that one little part in the gospel, and so he kind of pitted himself with Jesus, where he says, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father knows when this is happening. So it's Pastor Darby versus Jesus Christ. Now I ask you, who's going to win? But the text, you see, stands before us in this first Sunday of Advent because it's critical as to who we are and how we approach Christmas. Because it is so wide out through the country that it's celebrated for a variety of reasons unknown to us. Now, after the Second World War, there's no question that among the things that the United States did that most countries don't do, after they defeat an enemy or trounce their cities, they go in there and help them repair them. That's one of the glories of our country, that we have this tendency to go in there and help people. And so we did that in Germany through the Marshall Plan and the airlifts that were going over into West Berlin. But we also did it in Japan. And in Japan, they were most anxious to adapt American ways. And one of the ways they always thought that Americans did is they celebrated Christmas. And so they decided, what a wonderful idea. And so they did. They started celebrating Christmas. And they had lights, and people also put in Christmas trees. And they were celebrating this, but they weren't Christian. So figure that one out. But you see, there is a way that people do celebrate Christmas for any other reason other than it happens to be Christ's birthday. And so as a result, the challenge for all of us at times is to look at this text this morning and say, you know, the time is now to prep ourselves for Advent. And one of the things we worry about, especially during the season, is that when we look at this text, we don't want to think of our mortality. Christmas is coming. Let us think happy thoughts. Let us think about the good times. You know, all those wonderful decisions you have to make. Do you spend X amount of money on someone you don't like? After 2 years of not receiving a Christmas card and you sending one, do you finally cross them off the list? Who do you get over to the house for Christmas dinner? Will so-and-so get along with so-and-so, or have they had a fight? And all this wonderful stuff that you're preparing to celebrate Christmas in all its secular desires and all its deliciousness, in all the wonderful bills that flow in January, and you regret what you have done deep down in your heart and say, why did I ever do this? Because you forgot what you were supposed to do. And so starting off in Advent with all of this text about end times and end days is to simply say, look, you only got today. And these are what we call the apocryphal type of writings that you're going to get in especially, and not only in the Old Testament, but in the New. And we're always looking at it and saying, yeah, sure, but you know, that's 2,000 years ago, and after all, we've come this far and nothing much has happened. But the reality is it becomes very, very personal, doesn't it? Because these type of texts come into our lives when we least expect it. It is the text that causes us pain. It is the pain of a marriage that breaks up when it shouldn't have. It is the pain of finding ourselves physically in mortal danger, of a prognosis from a doctor that we did not expect. It is that worry that somehow this might be the last Christmas. And it is that type of fear that sometimes drives us, and so we buy our health insurance, which we must do, and we buy our life insurance, and we make all of the preps for Christmas, and we ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Is there any change between last Christmas and this Christmas to come? What are we going to do? And so each Christmas, this text arises and it looks at us and says, try it differently this year. Don't go for celebrating Christmas. Rather, celebrate what God is about to do for you, for us individually. And what it simply says is, I'm on your side. And it digs deep into the Old Testament story of Noah. And it says, you know, through all of the Old Testament, every time humanity fails, God has a new some kind of a really great plan to pull you out of it, to bring you into another era, into another different life that you can contemplate. And when you do, you can say to yourself, yeah, I've got all of this stuff in front of me. There are those things that go bump in the night, those things that scare us, that say boo when we really don't want to hear it. But in all of that, there is this promise of this uplifting of this story of Christmas that says, look, if you want to know about how I feel about you, I'm about to bring you a story for you to celebrate on the 25th. And when you do that, think to yourself, I'm not alone. Because even in our own families, there are those moments in time when you are going to stand alone. There are those moments in time when you question, why on earth do I take up time and space? Why do I do the things that I do? Is there any value in trying to lead a life that is gracious toward other people? And all of a sudden you realize that Christmas Day is the grandeur graciousness of what God is up to. This is not the God you see that you cannot see. The pie in the sky, the one way up there who is irreproachable. This is a little one. This is a baby. How helpless can you get? And in that baby, you see, is that growing promise that somehow, despite it all, despite everything that's happened in your life, whatever you failed at, whatever you did right, whatever you did wrong, every time you fell on your face, there was this God that said, come on, pick yourself up. You don't know when the time is going to come, but you do have today. So the hymn goes, Lord, for tomorrow and its needs I do not pray. Just keep me, save me, love me, Lord, just for today. So as we live and we approach, and as the newspapers put in those wonderful little things in the corner that says, 8 days to Christmas, and it looks at you and it hounds you, and it says you better get out there. And you pull the credit card out, and all of a sudden you're caught up in what the traditions of Christmas are that we've added over and against the meagerness of a cold manger, a child in swaddling clothes, the census being taken, Roman rule. Who would have thought that out of all of that would come the salvation of God? So, yep, the gospel's true. Not even Jesus knows when all of this is going to happen, but he simply says, hold on, everybody, because at your worst moment of time, I've got a great surprise for you. I shall give you what the world cannot give. And when you take away all the Christmas trees and all the tacky lights that we go out to see out in Richmond and take the tour, and I will go out once again, not far from here, just down the street, and marvel at the house that I saw when I first moved here. And what did I see? Frosty, the snowman. Susie Snowflake. Peanuts characters frolicking on the front lawn. Oh, there was one nod to Christmas, and it was kind of an angel-y looking type of thing. I think I saw wings on it. It was a blow-up type of thing that you kind of inflated and held down with little pegs. It had everything known under the sun about all those little things that we've kind of added to Christmas. It was the Grinch was there, yeah, that stole Christmas. What is that? Oh yeah, okay. He was there. Every character you could have possibly thought about was arrayed out on this front lawn. And I just sat there and I looked, you're celebrating Christmas, but you're not really now, are you? And if you had to take all those decorations down, I said to myself, would you still have Christmas? If you didn't have a tree, if you're going to buy presents for anybody, if you didn't write out the Christmas cards, would you still have Christmas? Would it really happen? And that's the type of thing that you hold inside your heart, doesn't it? And when you do, you make it happen. And when you make it happen, all of a sudden you realize, yeah, there's a lot of things that I fear in my life. There's many times I've fallen on my face. But despite it all, this 25th of December has been set aside to say, take courage, everybody, because God has better plans than even the traditions that we've created, because I love you more than you can possibly know. And it's that type of courage that simply says, hey, you know what? We could as Luther said, become little Christs to each other. And that would make Christmas real, to be little Christs to each other. So, buck up, everybody. Yep, it's a tough gospel this morning. But you see, there can't be any justice done through love unless there's some type of justice or judgment being done. And when God wants to judge you, sure, it's going to happen. Yep, it's going to be the last times. As he says, be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. But it might not be as bad as you think it is. Because when you're confronted by absolute grace and absolute love, absolute compassion, absolute forgiveness, then you will discover what was really wrapped in swaddling